Some people don't use the word empath to describe their experience. They're using it as a way to avoid looking at where it came from. You feel everything, you walk into a room, and you know who is hurting before they even say one single word. You absorb other people's moods like a sponge. And somewhere along the way here, someone handed you this label, empath. And finally, it feels like you are seen and you are valued. But here's what nobody is asking. When did you learn to do this and why? Because you weren't born necessarily reading rooms, you weren't born absorbing everyone's emotional state like it was your job. That wasn't a gift until it showed up one day. It was training, conditioning, and this training started really early. So today, 5 truths about being an empath that most people never hear. And the first one might make you a little bit uncomfortable. But here's the thing about hyper-awareness. It doesn't develop in a vacuum. It doesn't develop outside of human relationships. Children who grow up in unpredictable environments where love was inconsistent, where a parent's mood determined whether the day was safe, learn to scan. They learn to read the room. They learn to read faces, tones, and even silences. They learn survival patterns, knowing what someone is feeling before it even is happening. This is not some mystical gift. This is a nervous system adaptation. Ever hit a wall and realize that you're managing everyone's emotions since you were 7? That's not being an empath. That's being a child who learned that attunement was the price of safety. And here's where it gets a little complicated. Because the label empath can become a way to stop asking harder questions, it starts to feel like an identity. It feels like being special, but sometimes it's also a wall. I'm an empath, it's just who I am, and the conversation ends there. But what if it didn't end there? What if being an empath wasn't your personality, but a skill set you developed for reasons worth examining? Let's get it. Truth number 1, the label can be a cop-out. This one stings, I get it. The empath label can become a status and identity. I feel more deeply than other people. I'm more attuned, I'm more aware, and maybe all of this is true. But when the label becomes the identity, you stop asking what's underneath it. You stop asking, why do I absorb everyone's emotions? Why can't I just turn it off? And when did I learn that my safety depended on reading the room? Calling yourself an empath can be a way of framing survival as a superpower without ever acknowledging it was survival to begin with. Truth number 2. Your empathy has an origin story, and it's probably not pretty. Most empaths I work with trace it back to one of 2 places. Either they had a parent whose moods were unpredictable, and they learned to scan to stay safe, or they were parentified. They were made responsible for someone else's emotional world before they even had their own. This is not intuition, it is training, it is conditioning. Until you're willing to look at the origin, you may stay stuck in this pattern, absorbing, overwhelmed, exhausted. Because you're not just feeling other people's emotions, you're running old survival software that never got updated. Truth number 3, the nervous system doesn't care what you call yourself. You can call it being an empath. Your nervous system is calling it hypervigilance. Same mechanism, same sympathetic activation, same cortisol flood running through your body. The label doesn't change, the physiology. And if you are wearing empath as an identity and a badge without doing the regulation work, you're just naming the fire while you're standing in it. A regulated nervous system can feel someone else's pain without absorbing it. An unregulated one can't tell the difference between your emotions and theirs. That is not a spiritual gift. That is a boundary deficit with a really nice name. Truth number 4, real empathy has boundaries. Trauma empathy doesn't. This distinction matters and makes the difference for everything. Real empathy sounds something like, I can feel what you're feeling, and I can stay separate from it. I can still support you, but be separate. Trauma empathy sounds like, I can't tell where you end and I begin. One is about connection, the other is about enmeshment. If you grew up in an environment where enmeshment was framed as love, where being needed felt like being valued, you might have learned to confuse the two. The work isn't becoming less empathetic, it's learning to feel without fusing. Truth number 5, you were never too sensitive. You were too aware in a system that never let you rest. Here's what I need you to hear. The awareness that you have, the ability to read a room, to sense what another person is feeling, is not a flaw. It is a nervous system that learned to survive. Survival mode isn't meant to be permanent. You don't have to earn safety by reading everyone in the room. You don't have to manage the emotional weather just because you can feel the storm coming. The gift isn't the hypervigilance. The gift is what's underneath it. A depth of perception that once regulated becomes genuine connection instead of constant scanning. 5 truths, not one of them about losing your sensitivity. All of them about understanding where it came from so you can stop being ruled by it and start being guided by it. If this landed, send it to someone else who may find it helpful. I'm Chrissy, the emotional intelligence nurse, and if you want a personal tool to really start honing in on your empathy skills, get my emotional overfunctioning reset. The link is in the description below.